Okay, welcome to this third part in which we're going to discuss render layers and probably contribution maps as well. So render layers, basically what that are is it gives you like an extra set of controls on how to deal with different kind of images, but it works a little bit different. Now render layers is something which you find over here. So a render layer is actually a collection of objects and their settings. Now you have the master layer, which is actually the root of your scene. And all of the other render layers are actually some kind of a child of it. And you can make like small variations. So for example, let's copy such a layer and we can rename it to a test scene. And so the way how we can deal with this is as follows. For example, let's say that we want to make like a small variation in this test scene to something else. So what you can do is if you go to the attribute editor and select an object or select a material or select whatever you like, the thing what you can do is the following. You can go to its values or parameters, right click it and create a layer override. What you see right over here. So you can create layer overrides this way. So what you can do with this right now is, for example, if we say if I would transform the whole thing, move it up and rotate it in a certain direction, something like this, and then eventually also scale this whole thing. Now if we look over here, our master layer is still the same, but this has just like a small variation. And the nice thing is that, for example, if I go to the master layer or to something else which has not that layer override, then still everything is linked. So for example, if I move the chalice over here, you'll see in the test scene the chalice has changed as well. So let me just put this back. For example, if I go to the test layer and I would change it over there, also the master layer will be changed. So there's not really a difference between both of these. Okay, so how to get things back to normal? Well, you could think of setting all these values back, but basically the only thing you need to do is to just simply remove the layer override and if you're not pleased. So the layer override is just like an extra value replacing the original one. Now it's not only with these things that you can do it, you can also create, for example, new materials. So if we would create, let's say, go to my surface, and that's something we're not going to use with layers, we're going to create like a surface shader. Let's create 3 of those surface shaders. Go down and rename it to reds, green and blue, and you go over here to the color. You can just immediately pick red, green and blue. So what you can do right over here is you can create your masks very simply by creating like a new layer and then let's say having a set of objects being colored red, for example, some objects being colored green, for example, and some other objects being colored blue. There's a blue, there's a blue. Now the thing which is important to remember is that we've been talking about layers, so in this case actually we don't need any layers. So from this test normal, let's go over here to the IPR. Where is it? No, to this one. And you just can remove all of these, the custom color, custom passes. Let's select all of them and just remove them. You don't need them to be calculated again over here. Also, some other things which you can override is, in this case, we really wanted to have like a very accurate representation. So especially for the normal map and all those things, we don't want to have like any anti-aliasing, but in this case it doesn't matter really too much. So we can go right over here to the settings, and also over here in quality we can create a layer override, and perhaps not for the sampling mode, but if we set everything to custom sampling, we can set over here to layer overrides. So like this. So it goes much faster for creating these layers then. Some other things that you can even override is, if you want, you can create right over here a layer override for the render engine that you want to use. So suppose you want to render in one go using different kind of render engines, you can do that as well. So this gives you a lot of flexibility, as you can imagine. Now something else that I've done over here, as you can see, I've added like a set of 3 colors, and as you can obviously see, it would be quite hard to distinguish some objects from each other. For example, the cloth and the background, we can't see the difference anymore. The vase and the chalice, and we want to find a way how to get them out, how to distract them or extract them from each other. So how would we deal with something like this? Well, let me first rename this, and let's call this object ID 1. I'm going to create a new one, so we're going to copy this layer as well, object ID 2. So if you think of it, the way how you can create like the proper object IDs is by actually making sure that you have like subgroups. So over here we have like green, red and blue. Now if we all combine them into one color for the second layer, we can recombine them later on. So let me show this. So I'm gonna change everything over here into blue for this one. I'm gonna change everything into green for this one. And I'm going to change everything into red for this one. So this allows us to make like again some new groups, and it's very efficient because using this way, just having like 2 images that are being rendered, we can have like a selection of, let's say, 9 objects. Now if you would create a third one, in theory you can create like a selection of 27 objects. So it's a very efficient method, just using a few sets or just using a few layers to create exactly what you need. So that's one way. Let's create again a new layer. I'm going to copy the layer over here. Now what I've been doing over here was just setting like all the different colors, etc. So what I'm going to do right here is the background and the other ones, let's give them like all kinds of different colors. So the background, well, the background is just going to be a little bit whitish, and we can change the materials. So I'll do that right now, and I'll come back when I'm finished. Once I'm finished, so you don't have to look at all this. So all these objects have been colored right now. They also have like a little bit different materials. So it's just to make sure that everything is being adjusted. Now as you can see, again, everything is just linked right over here. Now what we want to do is actually, I want to have like a special layer to use for my lighting. That's something which I can't do right over here. So what I want to be able to do is over here change my lighting. So what I'm going to do, instead of creating like a new material that I'm going to drop over here so that it overrides those settings, what I'm going to do right over here is I'm going to create an override by directly clicking on the layer. And here you can also create assign a new or create a new material override. So we're going to generate a new material, and it's going to be like an override. And the thing what you're going to see is that once you do this, it's going to override for all at once. So it's just like an override for this. So we have these objects, now we have an override. The reason why I'm doing this, I want to create like a layer which I can use for my lighting, like I said. So I'm going to change this material, make the color purely white, have no reflectivity because I'm only interested in the light sources over here. Okay, so let's see what we can do with the light sources. So the thing what you can do is I'm going to add just a set of light sources as well. And before I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna name this layer properly. Light sources. So this is what we have. Light sources, master layer, and those things. Now I'm going to create light sources. So create lights spotlight. I'm gonna go to look through selected, and a smart student has noticed that once you do this and go to the attribute editor, that you see over here a camera shape being added the moment you look through it. And the cool thing about this is that you can change this part as well, so the way how you view the world through that specific object, so that could make it like a little bit more useful. So over here in the spotlight, make sure that you have like all the proper settings, and I'm going to already color the light just a little bit as if I would be coloring my scene for real. So using this as a color, I'm going to show the light source effect over here, create a penumbra angle which is going to be a bit bigger than this one, just like that. Going to add decay, quadratic decay. Let's see, start with 500. It's a little bit too much. 300, 400, something like that. Then I'm going to duplicate the light source and rotate. And normally I would have expected to have like a light source right now. So yes, now I do have like a new light source. Make sure I select this one over here. I'm gonna move it a little bit further away. I want it to be a little bit weaker. It doesn't matter too much. Oh, I forgot something. Also the shadows. Size of 1, shadow rays 32, something like this. That we have like a good setting for the ray trace shadows. And I'm gonna change the color of my light source just a little bit. Some color light from this side. Okay, again I'm going to duplicate the whole thing. Going to move around, make sure I select this light source, and this one is going to be my rim light, which I'm gonna make like much brighter. Something like this, for example. Okay, so if I go to my new perspective, I see all these light sources. I only have to change this one, making sure setting to 1, also 32 rays, something like this. So let's have just a very quick look on this layer. And this all seems to render just pretty nicely. Okay, so this is what we have. Alright then. Now, so I have all the light sources now installed. So as you can see, so what I will do right now is I have them also in the master layer, as you can see them right over here. But what I will do in this case, again, I'm going to create like overrides for all of these light sources. So the attribute editor, and let's see if I have enough space for all these spotlights. Okay, so I have 3 spotlights, and what I'm going to change over here are their light colors. So create layer override, create layer override, create layer override, and perhaps also for the intensity I don't need to have like this value, so I'm going to create a layer override over here as well, and these two I can leave for what they are. So in this case what I'm going to do is change over here this value to 600, something like that. As you can see, it's now much softer, and I will change my light source to red in this case, green, and blue. So now again, if we go to our layers, we see we have the original light sources and we have now these color light sources. Okay, something else which is really important is the type of material. We have like this Mia material. I want to be able also not to have like only the diffuse color, but also I want to have like the specularity. So that's also something I'm going to change over here. The reflection, I'm going to set it to white color. I'm going to make it like a very glossy, and I'm going to make it only highlights, only showing highlights. So if I make this dark, let's see whether we can get something. Reflectivity 2, no, it's not being more reflective. Perhaps we can change something over here with the color. Yes, you can increase the intensity of the color and that way have control over the specularity. So make sure that you have like this nice gradual fall off, because that's really important. Once you have like this really gradual fall off for the specularity, then you can control the specular very nicely. So we didn't need extra passes for that. Great. So this is all set and all fine. Again, this material, I need to change the original color back to white again. So now we can extract also specularity over here. So let's have a look at the render passes. So always remember to check all those things. Go to the render passes over here, everything is being added. So custom color, right now it's not necessary, we don't need this one. So we're gonna go disconnect this one, disconnect this one, disconnect this one. We have over here diffuse, which might be useful. The custom color, we don't need it either. I just want to add specular. Specular. We can create this one as well. Specular connected. Oh, that's wrong. I want you to connect. I want this one to connect. So now we have a diffuse and a specular. Let's see what else we can add. Is there something which is... You have diffuse without shadows. specular without shadows. So that might be interesting as well to extract the shadows. Let's create this one as well. Diffuse, diffuse, no shadow, and the specular we're going to disconnect. What I'm going to add over here is a specular with no shadow. Specular without shadows. Create. And connect these ones over here. So let's see, with the master layer, the diffuse, custom color, normal camera, normal world, reflection is something we have. Let's add over here, just for ease of use, perhaps the diffuse material color. Create. And connect it right over here. So we've lots of layers, lots of things. So we see like a huge amount of information being added right over here. We have like the master layer, object ID 2, etc. Now we have to go back right here and check over here this comment tab, because this is going to be quite important. Right now, what it's going to do, it's by default set up that way. It's creating within the image directory, it's going to create now also a new directory called master layer, and in which it's going to put like a home assignment, etc. Now this is not really clear because you always have to look in those things, so it's better actually to do something different. If you go over here to the file name prefix, you can either set just a name, and you see everything changes to that name. Now what you can do as well is you can just right click and say that I want to have like a render layer, and then it's automatically going to use the names it finds over here. So you have now in this case, because I've selected it, master layer or object ID, so you see what those layers are going to be named after. So now automatically it's going to generate for you all these kind of things. Now you can set up exactly the same structure that we saw before. Now if you create like a / and create, for example, over here the scene name, you see we have exactly the same as before. So you can create it whatever way you like. You can also create a dash in between, and so then it becomes the name of the master layer and then the name of the scene. So you have like all kinds of ways to set it up the way you want it to be. So let's keep it just as a render layer. And so now we're going to re-render the whole thing again. Alright, so the rendering has been done. Let's go back over here to our compositing, and what I'm going to do is now remove all the old stuff. Select these ones, remove them, we don't need them. Import, refresh the whole thing, and we see we have now a whole set of new things. Light sources, master layer, object ID 1 and 2, import all channels. It's gonna take a while. Alright, so that's what we have over here. We have like the object IDs, the master layer and the light sources layer. So let me explode them at the right spot. So first of all, let's go inside, select the whole thing, layout them, go inside, select the whole thing, layout. And so now if we press G, you have everything nicely set. So if we select each one of those and oops, Control Shift C, make sure we see everything through this view. Then we see over here we have like the diffuse with shadows and the specular without shadows. Strangely enough, it did create some shadows. So actually this is not working really well over here, because I really wanted to have something without any shading. So what's probably happening over here is once a value is a little bit too low, it's not going to calculate or going to store it anymore. Those are things you probably need to set or tweak over here. Okay, so what do we have? Again, we have like control over all these things right now, especially if we're going to create like a lot of channel rewires. So if you want to have like the different light sources, I'm going to create red light source, green light, and blue light. So if you connect them, you see them just appearing very nicely. The nice thing about this is also we see like this intensity. Now, since everything is stored in this dynamic range, by pressing Alt P, examine the colors, you'll see we have like some highly intense colors going a little bit weaker towards the end, but there's no problem over here since we have everything inside. So what you can do very quickly is you can add color correction basics to each one of those. Up, connect all of them, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring our lighting model back together. So let me put this a bit to the side. Now light is always additive, so to bring them together, go to Composition, Math Operators, and you can just simply add all of them together. So like this we have like the end result of all our lights. So now again I connect this to the output so we can see the end result at all times by pressing 7 right over here. So what you can do right now is in the color correction start playing around with some of those values. So let's say this light source here on the side, it's way too bright, so I'm going to lower its gain, and you're gonna see it's just dimming the light, or you can make it like very bright. You've like again the control whatever you like. So I'm going to change its color so I get like this bluish color over here. I'm gonna change this one as well, just make it a little bit less powerful. This one is going to be more like a yellowish kind of color. You can color it the way you want. And this one, it's like the top view, the rim light. On this one I want to become like very bright, so there's something you can control right over here. So this makes it actually quite easy to control all of these settings. Now once you have your light sources, you can also combine them, for example, with the existing colors. So let's say over here I have my colors, the ones that I had. It's just like the diffuse raw. As you see right over here with the diffuse raw, there's also like a slight problem over here. We see that we have like a fall off, so this is also something you need to address in a different way. The way how you can deal with this is exactly like as shown with a custom buffer. Then you can get exactly the right values out of that. So that might be a good exercise to try and solve this. Now, but anyways, we have it as it is right now. So to bring the color of the shapes together with the lighting, the only thing that you need to do is go over here, compositing, and in the math operators, I'm going to bring those together. But we're not going to add them together, because if you're adding them, you see it's not really giving you shadows. Everything is like very bright. So the thing that you can do right over here is to, instead of add, just multiply the whole thing. And so now it's multiplied with the colors of lights, and we have something like this. So this is the way how to control a setting like that. Now you can create also, and that's the real power of doing things over here in post. You can also create, now let's say, an ambient color. And so if you want to have like an ambient light, just connect like this light together with this one. Now you have like ambient light on top of it. So again, with color correction basics, you can control how strong the ambient light should be, so that you don't have like pure black shadows, but that you just have like a little bit of light over here. Here you can control the ambiency. So it's just like playing around, getting all these things properly set. And again, just make sure that you test this, that you make like enough experiments. Let's see, what else do we have? We have like the diffuse with the reflection. So here's the reflection pass, and here's like the pure reflection. You can see the difference. So you can start playing with those things, and using these masks, creating the combinations of these masks, you're able to get like reflection only for one object if you want to. So let's try and do this. Okay, I need green over here, I need blue over here. So blue and green, and then create over here the alpha channel. Let's see the color settings. Just a small moment. It's in the compositing math operators. Bring them together, and instead of adding, we're doing multiply. Now you have like this small outline. Now I'm going to show you also a way how to get rid of this outline, or normally that should be possible, because this outline is an effect. Because if you look very closely, it's not like a pure image, it's all being blurred a little bit, and it's this blurring and not the anti-aliasing that's causing actually the problem. So I'm going to show you a way how to solve these things as well. So if this mask, you know what to do. Basically just compose a new math operator. You go to the layer you want, for example right over here with the reflection. Go over here, instead of adding we're going to multiply, and we do have our sphere, and our reflection is something we're going to just add on top of this. Very simple. So again, since it's additive, add a reflection on top, and we have the output together with reflection right now. And so now we see that we have like just a normally colored reflection, but again now in post, using the same things over and over again, you can color, or you can make the reflection much brighter if you want to, or you can make the reflection being like a reddish reflection. So all of these things gives you a lot of control. You can also even change, for example, the color of that specific sphere. Let's do that. We have over here this color. I want to have control over the color of that sphere. I don't like it to be red, I want it to be blue. So how can we do this? Well, let's do this again with using color correction basics. Up, add it over here, make sure that you connect both of them. And we're going to use a mask. This one is for masking. We have over here the layer we want to use as a mask. And so remember, it's this one. That's our mask. Using this in color correction. So go to the masking. Make sure that you use the proper one. We're not going to use the alpha. I'm going to use a red channel in this case. And now let's do some color correction. And so it's red. And so instead of red, I want it to become blue. There we have it. Now we have a blue sphere. And by pressing F5. So basically what we want to achieve is actually the following. We want to create like good masks. So if we look now really closely over here, we see we have like strange aliasing. And it's doing that automatically even if you didn't want it to. It's not really aliasing, but it's actually more some kind of a blurring that it added on top of this. So if you see over here, it's just like the same pixel rendering, but it's just blurring around the pixels, giving it some kind of anti-aliasing. The annoying thing is, you can't really stop it immediately. So if you go to Autodesk Maya and go over here, it's something which has to do over here with these filter settings of the box. Perhaps if you look over here to the features, it might be in here. I haven't checked that yet, but I don't see anything of those things. So by default, it's being controlled right over here. So that's something we can't do much about. So the only thing to solve this is actually once you start having anti-aliasing rendered. So make sure that you do have like anti-aliasing for all of these. And that by the end we can set the filter size to the lowest possible value, which is 0.01, 0.01. So if you're now going to re-render the whole thing, it's going to use some anti-aliasing, which is of course improving the image, but it's also going to remove actually the smoothing of the box. And you're going to notice that that way you're going to get rid of all those edgy problems. So make sure we're going to render the whole thing. Render and batch render. Okay, so the rendering is done. Let's go over here and let's just reload these things. And now you see, while reloading, everything gets much sharper, much tighter actually around the objects. Okay, so after this, the thing what you can do, as you can see, it's a little bit sharper, it's a little bit finer. I changed this math operator to minus. Multiply gives you something smaller, but also if you have like multiple objects adding over here, you will get into troubles. So better to use minus in this case. Go to filter, use medium filter. I'm gonna make sure that right here we're gonna connect them properly. And so instead of a vector, make sure that it's like luminance. Using that, it's gonna give you already better result. Gonna have like multiple iterations, and we're gonna set the effect to hybrid so that we have like still our sharp corners over here. And so if we see this result, it's just a little bit better. Also we have like better anti-aliasing in the end. Remember all the other settings that you can use for using jitter and things like that to get better results for your anti-aliasing. Okay, this concludes this part, so now we're going to talk about contribution maps.